Hello, I'm Ala Ibrahim Sewaify, an interior architect and a teaching assistant in the College of Arab Academy for Science and Technology in Maritime Transport in Egypt, Alexandria campus. Today I would like to present to you my proposed Master of Science thesis discussing the biophilic design for dementia, a study to attain the overall well-being and physical and psychological aspects in the elderly living care. I would also like to acknowledge my supervisors, Professor Jihan Musad and Dr. Nermeen Hani, for guiding me throughout. I'm also very sorry for not being able to attend the conference in person, but I hope the presentation that I will discuss today would be as helpful and useful as possible. First, let me introduce you to what is biophilia and how did it develop into becoming biophilic design. Biophilia is a Greek origin word, and it means the love humans have for nature since the beginning of mankind. It is the affinity of human beings with the natural world, and this was according to Wilson and Callard in 1986, 1993, and 2012. And then this biophilia and this affinity of nature and the love humans have for nature was then determined by Callard and Wilson in 2012 and developed into biophilic design, a design that involves and incorporates natural materials, natural light, vegetation, natural views, and other experiences of the natural world into the modern built environment. Biophilic design elements and attributes have, have several classifications. First is the naturalistic elements, and second is the vernacular elements. The naturalistic elements comprises of environmental features, natural patterns and processes, natural shapes and forms, light and space, whereas vernacular elements comprises of place-based relationships, human nature relationships. Most of the environmental features are natural colors, natural materials, facade greening. Natural shapes and forms provide shells and spirals, shapes resisting straight lines. And the important natural patterns and processes include patterned holes, transitional spaces like corridors, age, change, and patina. Light and space includes spatial harmony, natural lighting, inside and outside spaces. Place-based relationships include geographic, historic, and cultural connection to place. Human-nature relationships include order and complexity, affection and beauty. And those were the most important and relevant elements and attributes that were relative to my thesis and to the elderly care for dementia. Before moving to how biophilia is connected to elderly living care for dementia, first I would like to explain what is dementia. Dementia is the loss of cognitive functioning, thinking and remembering, reasoning and behavioral abilities to such an extent that it interferes with a person's daily life and activities. These functions also include memory, language skills, visual perception, problem solving, self-management, and the ability to focus and pay attention. And this is all according to the source Alzheimer's Society in year 2017. Write quoted, study nature, love nature, stay close to nature, and it will never fail you. This picture here shows how all of the important biophilic design feature attributes, elements, and patterns greatly affect psychological and physical aspects of the elderly suffering dementia. And it also shows how this will help them attain an overall well-being through connecting with nature. It also shows how intimate relationships could be, how passionate people could be with the surrounding environment, and how nature can improve their well-being throughout. This following table presents the 14 patterns of biophilic design, which was created by Terrapin Bright Green in year 2014. This table shows how it affects elderly with dementia positively through stress reduction, cognitive performance, emotion, mood, and preference. The 14 patterns are divided into three main categories. First, nature in the space. Second, natural analogs. Third, nature of the space. The asterisk here along the table symbolizes the importance of the patterns and its relevance. It also shows how it could affect the stress reduction and the cognitive performance. And the ones I'm going to discuss now are the most important ones and that are relevant to my thesis and to the elderly suffering dementia. Within nature in the space, the 14 patterns that are important are visual connection with nature, which shows that it positively affects the stress reduction by lowering blood pressure and heart rate. It also improves the mental engagement according to the cognitive performance, and it also positively impacts their attitude and overall happiness within the emotion, mood, and preference. Whereas non-visual connection with nature also reduces systolic blood pressure and stress hormones. It also positively impacts on cognitive performance, and it perceives improvements in mental health and tranquility. The non-rhythmic sensory stimuli positively impacts the heart rate, the systolic blood pressure, and the sympathetic nervous system activity. And it's also observed in quantified behavioral measures of attention and exploration. Whereas the thermal and airflow variability positively impacts the comfort, the well-being, and the productivity according to stress reduction, and it positively impacts the concentration. And according to emotion, mood, and preference, it improves the perception of temporal and spatial pleasure. According to the presence of water elements and dynamic and diffuse lighting, it reduces the stress, the feelings of tranquility, and it lowers the heart rate and blood pressure. It also improves the concentration and memory restoration. It enhances the perception and psychological responsiveness, and it's observed that the preferences and it shows positive emotional responses. And finally, within the nature in the space, dynamic and diffuse lighting shows within the stress reduction that it positively impacts the circadian system functioning and it increases the visual comfort. Within the natural analogs, it shows that it positively impacts the perceptual and physiological stress responses. And last but not the least, within the nature of the space, prospect and refuge shows that it reduces stress, reduces boredom, irritation, fatigue, improves the comfort and perceived safety, its observed view preference, and it improves concentration, attention, and perception of safety. What made me choose this thesis was due to several problems in my country, Egypt, and how I wanted to offer a valid solution through this. First, 90% of elderly group aged 60 to 80 in Egypt spend their time in artificial built environments. And it's known that artificial environments deteriorate the chance for elders to connect with their natural environment. The percentage of elders in Egypt is projected to be 6.9% in 2015, 9.2% in 2021, and it's expected to reach to 20.8% in 2050. Thus, around 20 million Egyptians will be categorized as elderly by 2050. And this is a very big number that resembles a full nation in some parts of the world. Governmental and private elderly care services in Egypt are highly neglected and therefore resulting in an increased rate of unproductive and passive elders. The following diagram shows how the yearly increase rate of the passive elders percentage increase, as I actually just mentioned. And it shows how year by year this percentage will reach to 21% by 2050. And this is all according to the source World Health Organization, year 2017. The following is a comparison between elderly care living in Egypt and worldwide. First, worldwide examples of elderly care living attaining biophilic design in environmental psychology shows that in Kronstadt Psychiatric Hospital in Bergen, Norway, built year 2013, uses facade greening, whereas in examples of the neglection of elderly care living in Egypt shows that there is a lack of facade greening in El Mamoura Psychiatric Hospital in Alexandria, Egypt, which was built year 1960. It also shows here the spatial harmony within courtyards in the Kronstadt Psychiatric Hospital, whereas a lack of spatial harmony within the open spaces in El Mamoura Psychiatric Hospital. It also shows exploration, beauty, and discovery within the Kronstadt Psychiatric Hospital, whereas a prison-like atmosphere in El Mamoura Psychiatric Hospital. It shows a transitional spaces and how they're designed with the green elements within the transitional spaces in Kronstadt Psychiatric Hospital, whereas on the other hand, a very noticeable neglection of the transitional spaces in Al Mamoura Psychiatric Hospital. The aim is as quoted by Wassam in year 2013. Retirement is no longer an individual's last few declining years, but rather the beginning of a significant portion of an individual's life. This picture shows and reflects the beauty of nature. Not just that, but human being affinity for nature and the intimate connection we always had from the beginning of mankind. The aim is to improve the performance of the elderly care environments by integrating the two design models of biophilic design and elderly care for dementia, and thus attaining the overall well-being. Biophilic design and elderly care for dementia will show a framework, and this will eventually cause an overall well-being within the elderly care environment for dementia. The research objectives that are attained are as the following. The thesis will ensure to comprehend the different biophilic design elements and attributes that affect the psychological and physical aspects of elderly with dementia. It will analyze the diverse healing strategies that could be applied onto elderly living care through biophilic design. And it will also provide through biophilic design of interiors and architecture an environment that fulfills the overall well-being of elderly with dementia. It will also achieve a framework that integrates the two design models of biophilic design and elderly living care for dementia. The methodology that I will be using throughout my paper and thesis will be as follows. First, I will discuss the literature review and have a full overview of the biophilic design elements and attributes. I will also outline the different elderly care living types and the healing strategies of elderly with dementia. And second, I will analyze examples of elderly living care in Mediterranean cities. And those will be the inductive data, whereas the deductive data will be through the case study, that is using the guidelines and the framework, ensuring that the analytical examples and the literature review will showcase through my case study. And this will form the deductive data that I will be applying through the results of questionnaires and surveys onto a design, proposal, or solution of a biophilic elderly care living. And thus, this deductive data will be formed into conclusion and recommendations of my thesis and paper. This is the list of references and sources that helped me throughout my paper and thesis. I hope This presentation was useful, and I hope it helped you through this conference. And for watching.